a tool to help you live the life you choose. On this episode of Accessing Life, Chester and BJ talk about OPWDD's CAS assessment and also the Child and Adolescent Needs and Strengths Assessment, known as the CANS. We hear from Veronica, a self-advocate who shares her experience with the CAS, as well as Albert, the director of OPWDD's team that runs the CAS assessments.
We'll be talking about assessments for people receiving our services. And the first question is going to be for you, Al. Can you explain how important the assessment is and tell a few seconds about what it is and what it's not? Because some people are confused, and I think that it'll be important for them to know.
I'll start by describing the two assessment tools that OPWDD uses to help understand a person's needs and to support care planning process. So those two assessments are the adult tool, which is the Coordinated Assessment System, or the CAS, and the children's tool, which is the Child and Adolescent Needs Assessment, and that is called the CANS. These two assessment tools are super important because they help ensure that OPWDD is collecting information about the person, starting with the person first, right? We want to make sure that the assessment process is inclusive of the person. It utilizes information learned from other people who know the person well, who support the person, and documentation. And it's really important because these assessment tools are administered in a consistent way from a workforce whose only job it is to complete assessment. And all these staff who complete assessment, go through the same sort of training and oversight. So why is it so important? It's also important because it plays a very critical role in helping guide conversations and discussions as you are working with your care manager to develop your care plan.
And Veronica, we want to get your perspective of how it works for you.
The main thing is all about how the individual interprets the CAS and how the parents interpret the CAS. Are you going to go in with a mindset like angry or annoyed that you have to redo the same assessment with the same questions? Or are you going to go open-minded and explain to your son or daughter why they need to have this CAS and what the advantages are for the CAS? So that's why I have to say is it's all about your attitude.
One thing that struck me when we were meeting before this taping was what Veronica said, that the assessment needs to be about people. That's good to know because so many people think, and I'll tell you, I honestly thought it was just a way for the system to judge what I wanted for my life. And you helped me see that it's to make my life better just by making that statement.
You and Veronica are hitting the nail on the head. It is an opportunity to hear from the person first and to learn what's important to them, what they want with their life. What it isn't is the whole story. And what that means is that what you say to me today, BJ, what Veronica says she wants today is only one part of the story. There may be much more that needs to be added to that or changed as time goes on in order for it to truly reflect your interests and needs, right? So I'll make a generalization in a statement and say, no one is the same way all the time. We think differently day to day. Our values shift and change as we experience the world. Our wants and desires change. And what the CAS is meant to do and this CANS is meant to do is to begin to collect information. It's sort of like a foundation or a starting point, but gives you the ability also to create that plan that is more dynamic and or can change over time with you. So what is it and what is it not? It's a starting point. It's not the whole story. It will help understand your needs and inform decisions about your services, but it will not make those decisions.
So many people, when they hear the word assessments, oh, somebody's going to judge me. And that's the first thing I thought when the talk of the, the, the tool came out. Oh, another way to judge me, another way to give me not the best life that I want, less of a life that I want, you know.
Mm.
And that's what I thought when the word assessment was in there.
Yeah, I wanted to also mention too, like, it's not necessarily, I agree, it's not necessarily an assessment. It's a conversation. It's more of them getting to know who you are, what you need, and how, you can find supports to help you. It's not about a judgment tool.
A question I want to ask Al is, I knew about the cast, but I didn't know too much about the part that you said that was for the children. And for most part, for the children, they have the parents making the decisions and stuff. And, you know, how do you see overall that part playing a big part in it? And what would advice would you give parents when you're looking at what the assessment is and how it works for their family member?
How we do the CAS, how we do the CANs are very similar. We always want to start with the person first at whatever level or ability they're able to participate. And in this way, we learn a lot. I really can't stress that enough. I've heard stories from assessors who interview people, I'll say it doesn't matter their age, who might have some pretty significant challenges cognitively, right? Like in their abilities to communicate. And it doesn't matter from taking some time to talk with that person, you learn a lot about what's important to them. Sometimes even if you have to talk more with others to fully appreciate or understand it. It's important to explore all of what's learned as much as possible to really get to that person's individual needs, interests, what they value. I feel like that at the core is a person-centered, a person-first approach to working with people.
Another question, and I know this is going to be like the bombshell of the whole thing. What do you say when people get the idea that, well, you're going to have the assessment, and that means either the person is going to have more money or less money for services?
Money complicates everything, right? Money complicates friendships.
Mm.
It complicates our lives. I mean, if you've ever been out to dinner with some friends and you're trying to split up a check or something, you know how these things work. I can't say money's not important. I can never say that, but I would discourage people from being too preoccupied with that as they're going into an assessment interview, because we want and benefit the most from the genuine you, if that makes sense to you, like
Yes.
the real you.
Can you say a little bit about, what it has it meant for your life and the quality of, the things that you have and the things that you want, how important that has been meant to you?
Yeah, so I really think that quality has to start with the individual. It all has to do with where your thought process is. I think quality is huge, but really it's about thinking about your life as a whole and going about it as, what do I like? How is my quality of life looking right now? Like, am I happy? If it's yes, then I'm doing okay, and I can thank my quality of life to the cast. Because without it, I probably wouldn't be able to have staff. I wouldn't be able to have my cooking class, and I wouldn't be able to do bowling or have my apartment or have supported employment. So there's things that are positive that come out of this assessment.
Hell, I have a question for you. And I've heard a lot about this from talking to families and talking to advocates as I do, because I want them to be informed if they're going through this process and not scared, nervous, and angry, because a lot of people come into this angry, as I'm sure you've heard, I've heard, and you know, before you actually do the CAS or the CANs, all depends on what your age range is. There, there is a pre-conversation that you have with the assessor. What should or what does that look like?
In how the conversations before you get into the assessment, where do they go? They go where you need them to. It might be around where you want to have the assessment, who you want to be present with you, but also it might give a heads up to some areas that you're interested in talking about, or some areas that you're not interested. So it really is all about you in that respect. It's important to include those members in the assessment process to hear from the person first. And if we are going to be successful in supporting that person, have a voice in the interview process. With communication, there's augmented communication styles and devices that are necessary as well, to be utilized by a person. And oftentimes, with the support of those who may have special training or experience in working with that style of communication or even that specific individual. And this assessment process does support opportunity for that to play out. Is that helpful to
Sure, that's helpful. And one thing I was thinking about that I wanted to say to families and advocates watching this today, that it's not a magic bullet to get you everything you need. It's a tool to help you get where you want to be. It's a tool to help get you what you need.
Well said. Well said, BJ. You know, our assessors will say during training, we feel like, I don't know if you've heard the saying, like, we leave no stone unturned. And in a lot of ways, when they're interviewing you and listening to what you say and following your lead, they're turning over stones. They're really allowing something to come out from you that adds a lot of value when you're talking about painting a whole picture of a person. And in the process, it might uncover some things that are uncomfortable. And that's why I want to be sure that people and families are empowered to know that it has that potential, and then to help guide and direct it as needed for that individual person.
If you had to give one last piece of advice, what would it be?
So, my last piece of advice is to really remember, it's not about giving right or wrong answers, it's about meeting the individual where they are. If they can only give one word answers, like how they like Disney or a certain movie from Disney, just talk to them, say, okay, what is it about Disney do you like? Or and see where that takes you. If they say, oh, Disney, 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 maybe that might not be enough for, any supports that, they could get. but that's a starting point of learning where they are and accepting that maybe that's all they can give you, the assessor, on a particular day.
I always love what Veronica says because it gets so many wheels turning for me. I agree a lot with those remarks, Veronica. We found one time when talking and spending the time to learn from a person and not simply take something at sort of surface value. For instance, what it was about the particular Disney toy was the texture of the fabric that the person found so comforting. And so when they purchased blankets that had a similar texture, it was very comfortable for the person and she loved those blankets. So, moving beyond the surface to understand what is it about this thing is allowing something very important to happen, and it's taking a very person-centered approach at looking at the individual and working with them. One of the most important things I think I want people to know is that the assessment is a starting point. Yes, we're calling it an assessment. It is an assessment, but it's more than that. So I think, as Verona said, it's not just an assessment. It's also a care planning tool. What that means is that the information is expected to be built and developed into something more. Yes, the person might like Disney and like watching Disney movies, but when we find out what more about the role that plays in the person's life, you might find that there's a certain comfort or soothingness to the movies that can also help support behavioral challenges, or that could be utilized in different ways to add value to the person's life, to improve the quality of their life. And that's the ultimate outcome with much of this is really the people we serve and making sure that they live that life that hope to make their lives richer.
Are you enjoying this conversation? If so, Accessing Life has a library of helpful episodes on the OPWDD YouTube page. Chester and BJ talk to guests about everything from finding a job and keeping your benefits to making shopping more accessible for everyone. Hit the subscribe button below and ring the bell so you know when new episodes of Accessing Life are released. Accessing Life is a podcast produced by the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, known as OPWDD. The producer is Michael Orzel. Your hosts are Chester Finn and BJ Stasio. To learn more about the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, supports and services, go to opwdd.ny.gov.